Hi, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Michelle Arkusky, and I'm the executive director of She Is the Music. For those of you that are new, She Is the Music is a nonprofit working to increase the number of women in music, songwriters, artists, industry professionals, and many, many more. We focus on three key pillars to create impact: our all women songwriting camps, the largest global database of women in music, and of course, our mentorship programs, such as this. We took a little summer break from our music business basics panels, but we're so excited to welcome you back and kick off our sixth session of music business basics on touring. So as you already know, we have a dream panel today. So without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Sam Kirby, partner and co-head of worldwide music at leading global talent entertainment sports company UTA. I'm personally a fangirl of her roster, which includes Grimes, Rosalia, LCD Sound System, MIA, Florence and the Machine, St. Vincent, Banks, and many more. Sam is not only agent extraordinaire, but a key leader in social causes. She's the founder and board member of She Is the Music, an executive sponsor of Justice Now, and co-founder of Noise for Now, which connects performers fighting for reproductive rights. So without further ado, Sam, thank you for joining us, and I will throw it over to you to get started.
Thank you. Thank you. So I am actually going to bring to the screen our other three fantastic and fierce females of the road. It is our honor and excitement to tell you just how much we love live music and how it got us here, and give you just some insight into the kind of the different ways that you can also join in us on the kind of the live on the road. So first of all, do you remember your first show? Do you remember just how you felt? Do you remember the kind of like being in awe of that voice? Do you remember being in like, oh my God, I found my place, my community, an experience? That's what it was for me. I was like, oh my gosh, I am raving. And I was actually in the fields of England and raving. And I found like, this is nothing like it. Not just the music I love, but also the experience of it live. So what we want to do, and we've been going backwards and forwards, and is give you a little background to how each of us individually came to find our way into the kind of live music, and what part we are officially titled with, but that knowing that, you know, each and every one of us, we're part of a bigger team behind these amazing artists, and you know, and we all take on many different roles every day. So, but that is also our honor to be a part across the board and be partners with them. So, and to this, what we really want to do on the seminar is also just kind of tell you there's so many different opportunities and jobs that you can do to, you know, and also kind of ways as an artist that you kind of who you should put behind you, beside you as your team. And then, you know, also the kind of the different roles that you can kind of evolve into. So first of all, I'm going to throw it over to Yves, and I want Yves to say a little bit about how she got to where she is today and the fantastic artists that she represents. And go, Yves.
Thank you, Sam. And I'm very, very thankful for She Is the Music. I guess for me, I got started as a college rep for Def Jam Records when I was in college. And for me, it was a sort of release because I was a computer science major. And I needed like a break from programming, and I'd be programming all day long. And I knew that music was my outlet. I fell in love with it as a younger age, during a younger age. And it was a way for me to sort of release and be creative, because you don't necessarily get that in computer science, right? In terms of programming. And I got bit by the bug. And as a promise to my mom, I said I would still get my degree in computer science while figuring out what I wanted to do in the music business. So I hold a degree in computer science with a minor in business. But music is my love, music is my passion. And I started on the label side of things. I worked at Rockefeller Records in the, in the 90s or later 90s into the 2000s. And I also worked at Def Jam Records from 2001 to 2006. And I think that was a special time because that was the period where music transitioned from physical format, where we think about physical, when you think about vinyl, when you think about CDs or cassettes, and I'm aging myself, but we transitioned from those formats into actually the digital age. So for me, just being able to be part of that transition and seeing how we consumed music from those formats to digital and what that meant to the business, that was what was my driving force. And that was what sort of propelled me to where I am today, where I'm at an agency. I'm at ICM Partners, and I book concerts.
So Yves is the agent.
I am the agent. The beauty of it is I really get to sort of play with my passion for music and creativity. So I work with artists such as like Migos and Lil Yachty and LaKaylee 47 and Baby Rose and Rhapsody and Tank. And I think it allows me to sort of be a part of and help with the artists that I truly love and like and actually listen to, but that I'm emotionally connected to, but also help with the emotional connection of you guys, right? Like, I truly do believe music, and people talk about this all the time, it's an emotional thing. Like, you can remember the first time you heard something and that emotional connection, whether it made you cry, you laugh, or whatever. And for me, that's always been like the driving force of why I want to be a part of music. So to say that I'm able to sort of help play to the part of that with the consumer and actualize that and see that in true form is probably the driving force for me. So that's how I look at music.
All of that, right? Yeah, no, 100. And now I'm going to pass it over to Alexis, whose little label says tour manager, but again, we are never just one thing. So
hi everyone, I am Alexis. I'm tour manager accountant. So I got to this place because when I was younger, much like everyone else in this panel, music was everything. Live music was what it was all about for me. And then when I was about 15 or 16, a new family friend asked me to go on tour as their nanny. So I ended up going on tour as a nanny for the Allman Brothers when I was 15 or 16. And it just blew my mind that you could get paid to be part of live music. And this was pre-internet, this was pre-cell phones. I didn't know this world existed. And from that moment on, that's all I wanted to do. So I did the tour as a nanny. I just watched and tried to figure out what everyone did. And I went home and I told my mom I wanted to be a tour manager. And she told me I needed a law degree. And I believed her, which is not true. And so I kind of gave up on the dream for a few years, but then I came back to it. And I just started at the bottom. I was a runner locally. I listened, I paid attention. I volunteered my time. I didn't complain. I just sponged everything I could. And then I got a tour and I was a production assistant on a kids show. And then over the next couple of years, I started coordinating for world tours like AC/DC, the Rolling Stones, got to go around the world with those bands, which was amazing. And then I decided I wanted to try tour managing. When I started there, I had never seen a female tour manager. I didn't know it was possible, but slowly things were changing. And nobody really came to me and said, you should tour manage. It was really me trying to bet on myself and believe I could do it and present myself and push myself into that realm. And luckily it's worked and it's been great. And I've been really lucky to work with some amazing artists. And I can't play music, but I love it. So I get to help present it to the world. So that's why I'm a TM.
Oh, it's the same thing. I remember so much. I was actually saving waitress, bartender, everything. So I could afford to get tickets to go to shows all the time. And it was like, and then one day at a club or late night, he's like, oh, I'm an agent. And I'm like, what does an agent do? He's like, oh, I have to go to shows every night. I'm like, oh, all I want to do, that's all my money goes to like going to shows. Really? And clubs. So he was like, this is what you can do. So that's where I got it in that way. So but no law degrees are needed. And now over to Lesley, whose little label says promoter today.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Big fan and supporter of She Is the Music and all of these ladies here. I don't know if you guys know this about me, but I went to school at the University of Michigan for nursing. So I thought I wanted to be a nurse. Definitely loved listening to music growing up and going to shows, but never thought I would work in the music industry. Found out that nursing wasn't for me, transferred out of the nursing program, got a degree in literature, science, and arts at Michigan, moved to Chicago, started working in the hotel industry as an assistant, and then became a sales manager. Had to move back home to San Diego because my family was going through a bunch of different things and my parents needed my support. So I moved back home and was looking for a job and found a position to be an assistant working for a promoter, an independent promoter in San Diego at VA House Entertainment, and was working for this one guy, Steve Redfern. We ended up hiring another promoter, John Wojcik from House of Blues at the time, and he needed an assistant. And I was really intrigued by him, and he was an interesting guy, still is, love him to this day. So I started working for him, and he was really close with a lot of the bigger agencies, like close with Sam and a lot of really established agents. And I was becoming friends and getting to know a lot of the younger agents and assistants. So he's like, why don't you start making offers for some of the clubs? So I started doing that while, supporting him as an assistant, did that for about 3 years, and then started coming up to LA, going to shows, networking as much as I could, and met a girl who was leaving this venue in Anaheim called The Grove. She was with Niederlander, and she's like, I'm going to put your name forward for this position. And I'm like, oh, they're never going to hire me. I'm an assistant. And she's like, no, I'm going to, set it up for you. And this girl, Jen, so she really helped kind of get me to the front of the line because we had built a relationship. So they ended up hiring me to book this venue in Anaheim. And I remember one of the guys at House of Blues at the time called me and was like, are you ready for the big leagues now? Like, I was competing against House of Blues and I was terrified, but I'm like, yeah, of course I am. So just started booking shows on my own and was bartending on the side. Didn't have a contract because, I was a new talent buyer. I was working with agents, like Sam and Yves, and working on the local level. So just promoting one venue in Anaheim. I was bartending on the side for extra money because, it's expensive in the city. And I met some people from Golden Voice. I was bartending a festival called Detour Festival in downtown LA. I met this guy Skip from Golden Voice, and he wanted to introduce me to Paul Tillett from Golden Voice, who ran Coachella. And he's like, we want you to come in the office and meet with us. We're building this new venue in downtown LA. So I met with them, and had always been a dream, to be a part of Coachella and the company Golden Voice, which is the strong independent promoter at, in Southern California. Met with them. They're like, we want to offer you a job. We're going to build this venue next to Staples Center. And they offered me a contract, which was, something I wasn't familiar with. But I was super excited that they wanted to make like a long-term commitment to me. So I ended up, parting ways with Niederlander. They were super sweet and supportive, and joining Golden Voice and booking Club Nokia, which is now called the Novo. And that's really where I got my, self-established in LA. While I was connected to Club Nokia, I wasn't limited to that venue. I was booking shows at the Fox in Pomona. We started doing more stuff at the Greek. I got I met up with Kevin Shivers and Dave Tamaroff at WME. They were telling me that this guy, Tyler, the creator from Odd Future, wanted to build a carnival and do like a small festival. So put a whole plan together for him across the street from Staples Center in the parking lot, build a budget for a little mini festival, which was Odd Future Carnival at the time, which is now Camp Flognaw. So built that with his team, which was pretty special. And, just really getting in locally in LA as much as I could with all different types of artists. When you're a local promoter, you're usually connected to a venue or, specific markets. And you are the person that the agent calls when they're bringing their artists through town. So you're not necessarily booking across the country. You're, specific to a venue, and you're really building those relationships with the agents because you want to, be their first call, or you want them to know that if they sell you a show with their artists, that they're in good hands. So, that was really important for me. I would take people out to dinner. I would take the artists, and the managers and the agents out to dinner before the shows, make sure they were taken care of, work with the tour manager on site at the show. And kind of during that whole process, was reconnected with Omar, who was an agent. He was like, have you ever considered working in touring? And I was like, well, this is interesting. I've always kind of been focused on Southern California, San Diego, Orange County, LA. And he's like, you have really great relationships. Wouldn't it be great if you could take those relationships across the country and, not just book Banks in LA, but book her, throughout the country, or, whoever that artist may be. So ended up really hitting it off with him, and in 2017 moved over to Live Nation, and I'm still a promoter, but now I'm booking, artists across the country and even globally now. So that's a short version of the story, but 15 years later, here I am, and just excited to share our stories and what we do with you guys, so you can learn more about getting in the crazy business that we live in.
And booking artists, there's like Billie Eilish, Lizzo, Anderson .Paak, like some incredible
James Blake.
Yes, James Blake this weekend at the Hollywood Bowl. And many more. So no, Lesley. So it's the team, right? It's building the teams, and it's also kind of getting to know people at every stage. Just like, oh my God, and there's another door here, there's another door here, and keep going. So to that point, what we're gonna do. Thanks, Lesley. Thanks, Yves. Thanks, Alexis. We're gonna run through a little bit of like scenario. If you are a brand new artist, right? So you're a brand new artist. Say I am the brand new artist called XX. I am from Philadelphia, and I have written and released music. So usually at this point, by the way, when you've written released, you're also thinking like, have I got a manager or a lawyer, a few things like that. So then you're thinking like, I want to take my music on the road, right? I want to perform. I want to just perform my music, whether it's just in my local bar, or I don't know, do I do it in a bar? Do I do it in a venue? So the first thing you do is you look for an agent. In this, obviously, we're going to give you this scenario, and it's different for everyone. But so I look for an agent. So Yves, I am looking for an agent. I call you up. Tell me what an agent does.
I think what we try to do is grow your fan base, right? I think we can all, what you guys probably don't know, but we all know that sort of streaming numbers or radio numbers don't necessarily equate to people that buy tickets, right? So what we try to do is create a connection in that community, whether if it's your home community of where you're from, but we try to create that organic sort of groundswell where people sort of know who you are, connect to who you are a fan of what you do organically, as opposed to just sort of forcing people to sort of listen or in any of those things. So whether it's contacting a local venue, and part of that is also looking at the calendar of what kind of music they put in a venue. I think that's super important, right? I think venues sometimes dictate audience, dictate demographic and things of that nature. So you want to try to make that as cohesive as possible. So we look for those promoters or those venues that speak to the audience that you're going after. And sometimes an artist might start that by themselves by looking at a calendar that a venue might have. And if their audience or who they feel their audience is in alignment with what that calendar is, they might reach out to those booking people at that venue to perform. I've signed clients where buyers or bookers at venues have suggested them, or a manager or someone locally might have suggested them to me. So it's about trying to sort of create that happy marriage of that audience. And it's not a perfect sort of situation, but it's also trial and error. You want to put the best foot forward. So I try to put an artist in a situation where they'll be most successful as possible. So, you know, finding that audience, finding that venue that will speak to who they are, finding that promoter that speaks to who they are. It might be a fan. And you want to sort of, in that initial phase, put them in the best situation for them to gain an audience, gain a fan base that can sort of then tell a story.
So if you are a folk, then you're a singer-songwriter venue, right? Or if you're, you know, if you're hip hop, or if you're electronic,
Right.
and you're a DJ, so you're going to go to the DJ. So you're going to kind of go to the play, and you're going to go to the small places, or you're going to go to the parties that are already happening.
Absolutely.
Again, in Philadelphia, as XX artist, I'm going to go to the one.
Right.
That's
So there's smaller venues, like if you think about like a Milk Boy or I think Songbird was one of the good ones there. Like you want to sort of help. At the end of the day, you want to do better than what you did before. So if it's, I started a venue that's 250 or 175, then once I, you know, sell those tickets, then I can go to 500. And then once I sell those tickets, I can go to 750 and sort of gradually grow, right? At the end of the day. So
we're growing in Philadelphia.
you're building.
And then we're like, oh, you know, I'm artist, I'm a manager, and we're doing it with Yves, and Yves coming up with a plan. So I want to do more than Philly. Right. So now what do you do next?
So what do I do next is lovely Lesley. I tell Lesley, hey, I have this amazing artist in Philadelphia that's done amazingly well. And hopefully her counterparts in Philadelphia have said, I have this amazing artist in Philadelphia that can sell tickets and they have a great fan base. You might want to try them in X. And a lot of the time, you can look at a sector of the state of the United States or a country and say, hey, if you're doing well in Philadelphia, you might do well in New York, or you might do well in DC. So you hope that Lesley and what you've done in Philadelphia will tell a story nationally. So I think, you know, I lean on Lesley to say, hey, I have this artist that does well on the East Coast. I might want to build them on the West Coast, or I might want to build them in other areas. I want to make sure that you're aware that this person that's coming up is growing and building. So she is my resource to sort of tell the story in another part of the country that the artist can't be in. So when you hear someone say you want someone to advocate for you when you're not in the room, Lesley's the best person for that, because in another part of the country, she can advocate for that artist and tell a story that physically you might not be able to do that, whether it's money related or whatever it is, and you haven't been able to go to another area. You hope that the story you've told on one part of the country, you have a partner that can tell it on the other part of the country.
So she's got a plan, so she knows, and she's like, she can look at the cities and she'll say, okay, I know this. So, and then if she goes to LA, for example, if Lesley was independent, she'll go like, okay, is Lesley the right promoter? Because there's multiple different venues, there's multiple different promoters per city, per country, per county, per kind of every, you know, world, city, country, state. And she goes, okay, Lesley, and so she's selling, right? She's like, but in the she's no, this is why it's really special. It should go on XYZ. They open up for this artist. You're going to love it. And so Lesley then says, okay, and others are all there. Like Yves pitches it to 5 different people. Lesley's like, this is I love this artist. I can totally see what to do. I can see how to build it. And so she takes the risk. She says, okay, I will give you $100 or however much. Yves goes, no, it's not 100, it's $1,000 because they've got to get all the way across country. And I think that they should open up for the so-and-so. Or over to you now, Lesley, when you and Yves are now building the kind of the story and the plan.
Yeah. So, back in the day, we used to ask questions like, if radio was playing them, or, how are they getting exposure? What record label are they on? Nowadays we have access to Spotify and, Instagram and social media, and we can kind of see what the demand is there, whether it's 100% true or not. You can tell, who are they aligned with? What artists are they associated with? Who supports them? But yeah, I would ask Yves, like, how old are their fans? Oh, they're in high school. Okay, we should probably be on a Friday or Saturday. Tickets need to be, $15 or $20, or this is an older demographic. It's a seated show. We can charge $49, $59 for a ticket. They're going to come, they're going to drink. It's date night. So just depending on, hey, it's, I don't know, some super hot band, doesn't matter what day of the week it is, people are going to come. So yeah, I would ask all of those questions. We'd kind of go back and forth. Okay, I have a show this one night, but I can do these other nights. Can you move Philadelphia and New York to accommodate, the date that I have available? And depending on what, how Yves managing, the routing, which is, when the artist goes from the start to the end of the tour, then she's going to determine if she can move stuff around or not, depending on the venues avails, what day of the week she wants to be in certain markets, how much time the artist can be on the bus and the driver's driving the bus, which Alexis can talk about when we flip it over to her. So, we kind of go back and forth. I look at my, expenses. I work something up on an offer sheet. I send it to Yves, and she's going to collect all her offers. And maybe I have the same amount of money on the table as, the other promoters, but she's like, you know what, Lesley's my girl. She's going to fight for you. When you ask for pizza at the end of the night, she's not going to try and charge you back. Like, hey, I know she's the new girl on the street, but like, trust me, she's going to take care of you. Those other guys are going to charge you for the water and the pizza. And they're going to,
relationships are everything.
They really are. And
taking care of the artist, I feel like is really important, because when they leave the venue, how were they treated? Not just by me, but like by my production manager, by the venue GM, the security, et cetera. So
I also think, sorry to jump in, the most important thing as well is that this is the kind of we're decreasing between the fan and the artist, right? So this is the kind of the thing that Yves keeps going is no, it's it's got to be a lower ticket, right? We got to do this. I know, and we got to have, have you got this security in place? Have you got, how easy is it to get to the venue? All these things that they're thinking about for so that the fan, when they get to the venue, and also obviously the production a lot of the time, right, too, as well. It's like, no, they need to have a bigger stage. It's not just a band X is actually a 5-piece band, or it's like, or they need this kind of lighting or something. So they can make sure that it is the show that is truly representative of the music, right, that the artist wants to perform. And therefore, when the fans leave the venue, that they're like, oh my gosh, that was the most amazing experience, completely blown away. I want to come back, and I want to tell my 10 friends and 20 friends to come back. That's on all of our minds, right? As we're doing it, and we're like, oh, it's sold out. Yeah. That means when we come back, we can step it up. We can do something different. So
I think the experience is paramount. And that's, I think, what we all sort of play into the part is what experience are we giving the fan? Because it's an emotional connection. So I think that's what we all sort of try to tap into, is like that experience.
Yeah. And thinking about I'm not buying the ticket, the fans buying the ticket. They're also trying to buy tickets to other shows, being mindful of like the traffic in that market. What else is going on in town, just making sure you're telling the agent as much information as for your market, because she's not living in every city that she's getting offers for. So just a lot of like open communication. Because if she plays on top of a very similar artist, the manager is going to call and be like, hey, what the heck, Yves, didn't you know band Y was in town the same night as band X? It's the same audience. So just making sure that we're all communicating and supporting each other. And then once we confirm the show, then we work with the agency on when we're going to put the show on sale. Does it align with, music coming out or any press that they have, depending on what size of the act. Once the show, and we work, both with both of our teams to get it off the ground. Once the show is up and out, hopefully it's sold out. Then it's time for the artist to work with the manager and their road team to get the show on the road, which is
so that is over to so one step back or to side. So
sorry.
So that is great. So that basically Yves has collected all the offers for the whole tour. We decided we're going to do a national tour, 30 dates. She's gone over it with the artist. She's gone over it with the manager. This is how you go from, DC to Philly to New York to Boston. You need a day off. There's only so much, blah, blah, blah. And she's presented it. And the tour manager, then the manager is like, okay, she's got $1,000 a night, say, for everything. So they can see that they're going to make a total of 30,000 across the whole thing. So then and the artist needs to go on tour. So then the manager and the agent then hire over to a tour manager to have a look. So go, Alexis.
So you would take basically all the work that's done before an artist hits the road, all this amazing work. Then the tour manager would come in, and our job is to really execute, is to take all of this really well-planned tour to fruition. So it's a lot of logistics, advance again, and then advance again, because there'll always be surprises. And if you haven't advanced properly, you don't have the bandwidth for the emergencies and the problems that come up. Because it doesn't matter if you're in a van or in a club tour, or if you're in a stadium tour, stuff happens. So it's really important that if you're a tour manager and an accountant, you are advancing everything. So you want to advance the venue. If you're carrying audio, if you're carrying video, if you're carrying lighting, or if they're providing it, you need to advance security at these venues. You need to advance settlement, make sure the money's right, so everyone's in agreement. I always say my job as a tour manager is to make sure the artist has a good show and make sure they get paid, because those are both two very important things. You need to staff a tour, and that is a very important thing, because you're often living with these people in tin cans for months at a time. So it's not just about technical ability. It's also about how you can work with other people, how you work towards the artist's goal. We're all representing the artist when we're on tour. Anyone who's like, oh, whatever, and disparages anyone, you're representing the artist when you do that. So it's really important when you're on tour and you're representing an artist, you remember that at all times, especially as a tour manager. You speak for the artist a lot of times. So you have to make sure you have their best interest and their goals in mind with everything you do all day. Even on your days off, if you make a fool of yourself, that's reflecting on the artist. So you have to make sure you represent them properly.
We have to always we're speaking on behalf of the artist and looking out for the artist fan experience, right? That it is like, so if Leslie's putting something on sale, she has to put the right artwork on sale. When, Yves is deciding what the tickets are, she has to make sure that it is affordable, as well as it's the right venue with Lesley and everything else, but also it's the right venue to what the advancing is that Alexis is talking about, that it can handle the production that they need, that it is going to have enough security there so that, people are safe when they're in it, that it is actually going to be a pleasant experience, and all of this too, not just the pizza at the end of the night, but advancing if you don't get the pizza.
Yeah.
And if you're in a Sprinter van.
Yes. And the feedback is immediate. I mean, I can't tell you how many artists will get off stage and be like, did you see they said the sound was bad tonight? They read it on social media immediately. So you get an immediate feedback, even if it's just that one person's experience. You have to be cognizant of it all. We get
that call too. We all get that same text, why am I playing in this venue?
So So just kind of going back to putting together the tour before it goes out, hiring crew. Obviously, there's amazing databases like She Is the Music that are great resources to find people to go on tour. You know, I think more and more tours are cognizant of having more women, more diversity, which is really important. And I think it's something people are actively changing and doing more of, which is fantastic. So you can use these databases. You're looking for, you know, the most basic level front of house audio, who's going to mix the show, which is basically how the audience will hear the show. It's a very important role, and it has to be very artistically aligned with the artist. They have to be on the same page of how the show sounds. Then you would have if your artist is using monitors, in-ears, you would have a monitor tech. You'd have a lighting person who's going to light the show, design the show, execute the show. You would have backline. If you have bands, these are the team who tune the instruments, make sure everything's good on stage, so the artist can just be concerned about their performance. And then a merch person to sell merch in these venues, which, as we've talked about, is a great source of revenue for artists. And that's kind of the basic crew with a tour manager / accountant. And, you know, this is like, you can have crews that are 5 people or less, and you can have crews, stadium tours that are 200 plus people. You know, the spectrum is very wide. But you always just want to make sure you're hiring people who can work together, who can be flexible, who are always learning, who are always growing, because the industry is changing all the time, and are a good representation of your artist.
I think the key is to what you're going back in regards to is when you are hiring, so that the artist and the manager, you know, and the whole team, right, are putting together this team, and they're like, you know, we want diversity. We want to make sure that there is kind of like, and so we want to make sure that the family on the road is truly kind of a family that is going to kind of get on, that is going to inspire and take care of each other. There is all these considerations to go into it, including when you're hiring a light vendor, you know, like when you're going to a vendor, it's like, hey, we want to go to this vendor because they have apprenticeship with this certain college or with the kind of, and they are kind of it's not just, you know, they are trying to bring more people, teach more women, you know, more women of color, more everything to come. Hang on, declining call to come. So I think it's really important as we are building our teams, right? And as you are building the teams, that we're really kind of making sure that it is diverse and that it is representative of what the artist wants it to be representative. That's the thing in today's, right? So, and it's a safe space. I don't know if you want to kind of add any more, but that's a really important as it comes to you. And then we have the tour, then they're starting, right? The tour is starting, the first date is happening, and then it is rolling on, and the tour happens and it goes all around. Right now, it goes around North America, this tour, right? With Alexis is there. In theory, she's not actually in a Sprinter band, maybe she is, which means she's driving, and then she turns up, and then she does the sound, and she runs out front, she does the kind of the merch so she can earn some money for the next gas, etc. And then she builds it up, and then the artist sells that one out, right, Yves? And then so Yves now is like, oh, back to you, Yves. So you are like, that was fantastic. That's
So I go to the next phase, and I want to grow your business. So if we're starting small and we think 250, 375 cap venues, now I want to either grow your business to you doing headlining shows, maybe in the 500 to 750 capacity, or we decide that there's this larger artist that's doing larger rooms where you can then use their fan base to try to grab more fans. So, right. So then we discuss and we have a conversation about now is the next stage to grow like your landscape and your market share, if you will. And do we do another artist that is going into larger rooms where you can stand to sort of steal those fans, if you will, and perform in front of that situation, right? And a lot of those times, those conversations happen when you're off or on cycle in terms of your own project release, right? So how we think about it is sort of the rule of thumb is if you have your own project coming out, you might do a headline run or something that's more focused on you. And when you're off cycle and you want to sort of build a little bit more collateral, build a bit more of a fan base where the pressure is not on you to sort of sell tickets by yourself, you'll then leverage what you've already sort of done for something much larger. And that's when we talk about supporting slots and things of that nature, sort of cohesively tapping into a lineup or another artist, where musically you might be aligned, fan base you might be aligned, but can help you grow your footprint. And again, I lean on Lesley, right, to sort of say, or I lean on Sam to sort of say, hey, I have this artist that I know can sell X amount of tickets and can bring X amount of value to the table. What are you working on where you might have an artist going into a bigger building, right? But package-wise, I'm selling an experience because we all are selling experiences. At the end of the day, what can move tickets? What can move merch in a venue? What can move all those other things where everyone can sort of make money from the situation? So I go to Sam and I go to Lesley and say, I have this artist X that's done this in its hometown or on their own, but I think can add value to whatever it is you have going on that's much larger. How can we work together? How can we sort of sell a bigger story, a bigger picture? And then because we're off cycle for a project, so the pressure doesn't necessarily have to be on that artist to help sell tickets or drive demand. How can I add to whatever it is that you're doing? So I think that's always sort of the next stage is when you try to grow an artist sort of footprint is, do I put the pressure all on you or do I try to add value to something else? And a lot of the time it's about adding value to something else to help build a bigger footprint so that the sort of burden isn't on that artist that's trying to grow. And then, that's about relationship at the end of the day, right? It's knowing that you're selling something that's not complicated, even personality-wise, is it combative or just not in the vein of what the larger artist is doing. And that's when you have sort of leaned on your relationships that you've built, knowing that what you're selling is something that's worth value and growth, but will create a pleasant experience to the consumer, to the artist on the road, and to the people that are involved in that. Because I think at the end of the day, that's a bigger thing is we're all working together. We don't want to make everyone's lives harder. So how can we still give the consumer something that they'll love and appreciate? And us as the people in the background will make it a pleasurable experience to sort of work cohesively with all these teams. Because personalities are big, right? Personalities are a thing. You can't necessarily dictate what one person's going to do to the next, but you hope that the people that you get in bed with make it easier, pleasurable, and you all have the same goal at the end of the day.
So I'm going to put it, we have some questions. Thank you. So then you can go support, then you can go headline, then you can go international, right? Then you can kind of like, okay, you built these moments everyone's talking about you domestically, then you go over to London or you go to Australia. This is great. So you can understand the kind of, and you keep building, and then you're arena artist, etc. And Alexis keeps kind of bringing in more staff to the riggers and the carpenters and everything. And Lesley kind of brings in more kind of like, okay, we've now got a 5-hour load in and we've got to do this kind of, this is now we're in Madison Square Garden and it's going to cost so much. And Yves is saying, oh, why don't we play Barclays instead? Because you might be able to earn more. But it's the legend of Madison Square Garden. Yves say, let's do MSG first, then go to Barclays. So it keeps going. So I'm going to throw back a couple of questions now that people have like sent in before, and then just to kind of like expand on this. So first of all, I'm actually going to jump straight into this. What is the major difference between independent agencies and major agency? Yves, I've got a few questions to get through.
So sometimes I think it's about bodies, right? I think at these larger agencies, you have more people involved in the process that can do more outreach and just have more conversations about broadening the artist's footprint. So to me, I think that's probably the bigger sort of difference is the amount of people that you have working for you. I think passion is passion at the end of the day.
Exactly. The number
On
one
the smaller
thing is,
scale or the larger scale, if you love something, you love it. So the amount of work and the effort that you put into it relates to passion. So to me, the only difference is probably bodies, because I think whether it's a 5-person team or a 10-person team, if you love something, you're going to go hard and in the paint. And if it's working 8 hours, working 14 hours, or working whatever, if you love something, you're going to put as much effort as you can into it to help it grow. So to me, the only difference is actually bodies, but that passion and that love differs from agent to agent and person to person. So it's not about loving something or working hard. Maybe it's just the amount of people that you have at your disposal to maybe make up for the work that you might have to put in, right? So as opposed to having someone that talks, the one person that might talk to a branding department, or you want to get into film and TV, or how much you want to diversify your business, you might have more people at a larger agency helping that. Whereas on a smaller agency, you might not have that many people, but the passion might be the same, or the experience might be the same. So for me, it's really, I always say this, at the end of the day, we're in the business of service. And the only difference is how much will I do for you versus the next person. It's not about who we talk to. It's not about what we'll do for you. But I truly do believe it's about the passion that we put into you and how much can we convince the next person to put into you.
totally.
Large versus small, it's about, if I have to do everything myself and I love you, I'm doing everything myself regardless.
Yes.
I can have 10 people behind me, 15 people behind me, or 50 people behind me. My work ethic is about what I truly do believe the growth is in that artist. And I think any person will tell you that in this business, it's really about the passion, less, bodies be damned. But if I love it, I'm going to make sure that it succeeds.
So that point is basically to the question that just popped into the chat that I'm looking at the same time, is it doesn't matter if you're an independent artist or a signed artist. If Yves is passionate about you, she's going to work with you. And then she will use the resources and the information at her agency to kind of move between festivals or venues. And I'm going to throw a question back over to Lesley too, as well, the kind of looping into that and also kind of adding on to it. In regards to the difference between major promoters and the kind of the small amount of major promoters, and then kind of like the indie promoters, and also independent spaces, right, which is so important, and kind of like, and the kind of like how it works in regards to getting support dates, and how that can help an artist. You're muted.
I think it's there are some parallels with the agencies where the bigger promoters have more people, in multiple cities, whereas the independent promoters might be, more focused on, a specific city or region, like California, Southern California, San Francisco, or maybe the West Coast. Whereas like a larger promoter will be either national or even global. I think, at the larger company, what's nice is you have resources. So Yves could call me about an artist. I might not be familiar, but I'm going to call my coworkers in other cities to see if the artist is on their radar, or what do they think. Whereas if you're an independent, you're kind of, you're just going to communicate probably with the people within your company, or maybe you're talking to other independent promoters and maybe you guys share information to see what the artist might be worth, or, if they're on their radar. So I think it's just kind of similar, resources, people, but some of the best promoters, are independent promoters. We also have independent festival promoters who don't book locally, they just book festivals. We have some situations where there are large companies like Live Nation or AEG that book markets and venues as well as festivals. So that's kind of nice, because then if we work with an artist and we book Lollapalooza or ACL, or some of these different festivals that our company works with, we're going to call those talent buyers for those festivals and say, hey, Amy Corbin, want to make sure that, Banks is on your radar for ACL, or hey, Houston in Lollapalooza,
Thanks again. Yes.
Migos needs an offer or
Yes.
whatever. So there's that connection, and resources too. When an artist comes to me and they want to do a festival, let's say I don't have any festival experience, then I can call my coworkers who build and promote festivals and say, hey, I don't know what to do with, Rosalia, she wants to build a festival in Spain. I'm going to call my coworkers who have experience and try and get, help building a budget. So I think similar on the agency front, different styles, different approaches, different resources, but again, all working towards the same goal.
Right. I'm going to there's a question here that says, what is the logistical differences when artists do tours that directly involve local radio stations? For example, Rihanna, when she did the multi-city tour with the press on the tour as well. So to that question there, do you want to answer it? Yves, basically, and it's both promoter and agent. And it's like the local radio stations are your marketing partners, right?
Mhm.
It's the one way, and that's as that we've talked before. And then also, you do radio station shows to
Right.
kind of get your music on, to kind of amplify you for then you'll come back and do your own show, right? To what they're saying there. I just want to
The
give
the label's super involved in that, they're
Absolutely.
working the radio stations, the Spotifys of the world, they're, making sure that whatever artists they represent are on the label, the radio station or the Spotify's radar, communicating to them, hey, this artist is going to go on tour, we need your support, so it goes deep.
Yeah, I
So
think
I'm
it's a
gonna-
footprint conversation at the end of the day. Like, certain shows are syndicated and all these other things, and the business that we're in now, where you have online and all it just helps tell a story, helps broaden the artist's horizon, helps broaden the consumer base of the artist. So I think at that point, it's just more so about maybe getting more bang for your buck, if you will, in terms of who at one time can listen to an artist, not necessarily in that town, but helps sort of tell a story and help, like I said, broaden the horizon of an artist at that point when you think about radio.
So moving on. So now I'm going to go to Alexis. And the questions we had was in regards to hiring, right? So it kind of what is the professional path to being a tour manager or a tour accountant? And then how, do you go about kind of hiring kind of the tech positions, the kind of monitor engineer, the front of house? You've given a little bit of it before, but, particularly kind of to people here, what is their steps that they should do?
I would say local first is a great way to start. There's a perception of touring and then there's a reality of touring. And I think it's important to immerse yourself locally and then try to get on a tour to understand what it is, because it truly is an alternative lifestyle. It is not a normal life. You are gone all of the time. You miss birthdays, you miss weddings, you miss funerals. It's a different life. So it's important to try it out before committing a lifetime of service to it. And I would go to your local promoters. I mean, that's what I did. I started as a runner. I said, I'm available, I'll work for whatever it is. And I'm available for every show you have. And I just showed up every day and I listened and I absorbed and I asked questions. And I just tried to network and meet people and I worked for free and for almost nothing a lot. While that's not always amazing, it is opportunities you can get. If you know someone on a tour and they're coming to your city, say, hey, can I help you for the day? Can I shadow you? Can I sit in your office? I'll help stuff envelopes. I'll do whatever I can do, use your resources to volunteer, and then people will start paying you. People will want you around. As you show you're a hard worker and, and smart and are willing to go that extra mile. So definitely meet people, reach out to your local venues, your local promoters, wherever you can. Reach out to agencies and managers and just put it out there. I mean, people cold call all the time still and just say, hey, I'm new to town. I'd love to, you have a festival. Can I help out? Just, there's no shame in that game at all. Like, put yourself out there. You're your own marketer. And in the world of touring, it's freelance. 99% of people are freelancers, and we have to get our own work. So I would just get out there as much as you can.
And sign up, right? This is the
Oh,
sign up to this
absolutely.
database. The key thing that with like Lesley, Alexis, Yves, we're when we're recommending, when someone's like, oh, I need a lighting person, I'm like, go to She Is the Music, look it up there, or go to XYZ. If I'm looking for a roadie, or I'm looking for a carpenter, go to kind of databases, put your name in every single database that you can, right? Because that is how you get more, and then the network will come and support you. So we're coming up to an hour. So I'm going to I have 3 questions that I'm going to throw around the room that we're going to do here. And I'm going to keep looking at the chat, but I want to do this. So the first one is, we're a group of women here, female, and I want to say to each of you, just to kind of say, what is the difference you have seen in recent years in regards to kind of the number of women in the live business and touring? Go first, Lesley.
On the local promoter side, I feel like just as I've come up, there have been quite a few female talent buyers over the years. Not a lot with families. I definitely was the first person in my office to have kids. So that was interesting. So yeah, I mean, I think, just getting in there, more and more women, figuring out how can they get in and which direction works for, their skill set. You could come in maybe, as a runner or working box office or as an assistant, at a promoter or an agency, but you don't have to be married to that, and, figure out what you enjoy about the business and where you feel like your skills, are best put to use, and then, network so that you can make moves and get to where you ultimately want to be. But, even though we've been doing this for a long time, I think all of us are always learning and growing and, being open-minded and trying to improve who we are and how we do business. So, even if, you've been doing this a long time, we're still all, students at the end of the day, and just learning from each other, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
I'm going to send it to Yves because there's a lot to say in regards to kind of being on the road with Alexis in regards to kind of the, how we have to boost the numbers. But go, Yves, in regards to agents and more in regards to female.
I would say I would piggyback off of what Lesley said as far as females in this business. I think not only that, but maybe women of color. We've seen an uptick of that, and not necessarily in the rapid stance that it has been otherwise, but even just knowing that that's sort of, there needs to be a change in that regard, and the importance of that and pouring into that. I can honestly say that there's been a shift in sort of, if there was a hierarchy of what you were sort of wanting to bring to the table, and making it an important thing, I think it's been probably more prevalent to bring in more women and more women of color into the space. So I'll say that.
Alexis?
I would say the change is slow, but it's happening. I feel like one of the things I always touch back to is women on tour, not just being on tour, but being decision makers and being positions of authority, who can make changes, who can hire. Traditionally, a lot of the female roles on tour have not been that. And there is a change. You're seeing more, it's slow, but there's female production managers, there's female tour managers, accountants, there's riggers now. I mean, I told the story earlier. The first time I saw a female rigger, I stopped dead in my tracks. I was like, oh my gosh, because I was so excited to see a woman on the floor. And now, you know, there's women on the floor all the time. They're still the minority, but the change is happening. And I really think it's so important to support other women in your industry. And it sounds cliche, but we are so much stronger together. And when we support each other, we help each other rise, and we help other women rise as well. And I just think it's really important when there's room for all of us, and we just need to help each other.
100%. Sign up for She Is the Music. It's the women, really, we keep supporting each other. Keep supporting Yves, Lesley, and Alexis, because they are fantastic, and anybody should be so lucky to work with them. They'll be really looked after. Second one, I think, that I would like to do is, I think, really important is health and safety, right? A safe space and kind of just mental health. And maybe each of you can actually talk about that too as well, which kind of goes to what Lesley was talking about, the work-life balance, right? But if there's something you want to add in regards to just thinking as you're going.
Can I go first?
Yeah, you can.
Okay. People, unfortunately, I've worked in other industries, you know, the hotel industry and the music industry, do inappropriate things all the time and say inappropriate things. But I think it's finding people you trust that you can talk to if something uncomfortable happens to you, and not being afraid to speak up. Because if you don't, then it's going to happen to somebody else. So I think that's really important, and something, you know, definitely personally I've been through stuff and just always was like, oh, I'm just an assistant. Like I can't say anything. And it's like, you got to be able to speak up and, you know, protect yourself and other people. So just making sure you have somebody that you can go to that will have your back, and that you can trust, and not being afraid. And then as far as like work-life balance, you know, I'm probably now much better at it, but have always been horrible at it. Just working too much, too late, you know, always doing everything for everybody else, putting myself last. You know, once I started having kids, I realized like I needed to, you know, take care of my family, and, you know, meditation's been really helpful for me. I think it's a game changer for anyone, no matter what industry you're in. And then just setting boundaries and saying no, and, you know, don't do things just because you feel like you have to, like do things because you want to. And, you know, saying no is a very powerful thing. And I think it's, you know, something I'm trying to get better at, but just, you know, making sure that you're taking time for yourself and your family. And because we can only be our best selves for the artists we work for if we're taking care of, you know, number one. So
Totally.
my advice.
Yeah. Yes.
Still living it and trying to get better at it.
Everything. So, do you want to add in, Alexis or Yves?
Everything she said. I mean, it's so true. I feel, and especially as minorities in our business, sometimes we have to prove ourselves a lot more than our counterparts. So we just give and give and give and give until we're drained. And like she said, it's just not good for us. And especially when you get to a certain point in your career and you're able to go scale back and go, wait a sec, okay. You know, that's really healthy and important, but it's important to do that from the beginning, which is very hard to do. And I'm not good at it either. But I am getting better, and it's actively trying.
I think it's really important as well, just to stand beside and say, are you okay? Right. And check in.
Yes.
So much, because sometimes we're going so fast and we don't realize it. It's like, are you okay? What can I do to help you? And that isn't okay, what he said or they said or whatever just happened. And make sure that you can actually provide a space for them to take a moment away if they need to take a week off or they need to do anything. So it's so important. And the work-life balance, I would tell you actually, is that Yves is actually in Atlanta, Lesley is in LA. Alexis is in Salt Lake City, and I'm in LA too. We're all moving around all the time. So it's and then when we move around as well, is when we are chosen to have children, it's the we bring them with us, right, Lesley? It's like, okay, so we got Chicago for the weekend for Lollapalooza, then the kids are coming too, so we will get less hours sleep, but we can wake up in the morning and play with them. So in the kind of one hotel room that they're all squashed into. So, or however it is. So, or you have the kind of the tour bus that's the family bus, right, Alexis? And you have the, you know, if you choose to be an artist, touring artist that actually wants to take a family on tour with you. I mean, you're with an artist now, right, that is doing that.
Yep, family tour all the way, nannies and kids and the whole shebang. You can do it. I mean, an artist can do it. And I'm also a mom, and I'm one of a few moms who tour. Then we can do it too. Like, don't let anybody tell you you can't, because you can. There's ways around it. It's difficult and it's hard, but it's possible.
It is. And when you look after your own mum, or you look after your own family, and it's just down to Yves. So I am going to, oh look, Emily's in Atlanta too. I'm seeing that. So go to Afropunk. When is that? This weekend, Yves? So I can see on the chat. So then I was going to actually
Saturday and Sunday, Afropunk. That's why I'm here.
Is there one thing that you would say, they always say in these things, right, too, as well, is there an advice that you would say in regards to anybody here? They have one little thing that you want to say at the end in regards to it? I think we've said a lot. Is there one more thing that you would like to kind of tell an artist or a person who's thinking about touring what to be really thinking about before they commit to it?
I'll go.
Yep.
Yeah, go for it.
I would say work hard, be nice. It's really important to be nice. People forget how important it is. Relationships, which we've said so many times this evening, are everything. You will see people again, you will work with them again, and it's a very small industry. So remember how you treat each other is very important while you're in this business.
And ask for advice, right? You know, and that's the same thing, is that, you know, again, we have our community, ask advice, like, am I meant to be doing this merch, or am I meant to be doing this venue? I would call Yves and say, like, you know, how was the experience with Migos at this venue? Should I put my artist in there too? And she's like, no, don't do it. Or I'll say to Lesley, you know, how was that tour manager? Do you think they're good? And she's like, yes, great. They were on tour with Billy. You should definitely use them for flow or whatever. So, and Alexis. So please ask advice all to your community, to what you were just saying.
I would say, remember that this is still a business.
Mm-hmm.
For all the love we have for music, for all the emotional connection we have for music, in this sector, it's still about dollars and cents through every decision-making process. So I think if you truly sort of remember that at the end of the day, that will help with a lot of disappointments that might come along the way, and how you digest those disappointments.
Thank you. And to the what she's always said, this about dollars and cents. We live in a COVID world right now. We're coming out of a COVID world. There is such a risk. Not obviously there's the health risk, but there's also the financial risk of going out on tour, getting sick, the kind of the everything. So we can go into a whole seminar in regards to COVID. So we're not going to do it now, but we are so glad to be back. But that is also a risk in regards to one of the force majeures of life. And Lesley, what is your advice in regards to?
Just to be professional and treat people the way you want to be treated, and always treat people with respect and communicate. I think that's super important.
Super communicate.
So.
Well, I don't know if you want to come back on, Michelle. I know that we've gone to our 75 minutes just about, but thank you. Love these ladies. They're the best.
Thanks for having us.
Thank
That
you.
was amazing. Thank you, Sam, Lesley, Alexis, Yves. Honestly, I'm so excited to listen to this again. And thank you for your time. It's so appreciated.
Come to a show. That's what we want. Come and
Yeah.
support our artists. Come and
hang.
support yourself as an artist. It's amazing. So come on out safely.
Yes, we will be there. All thank you. Follow She Is the Music on Instagram if you haven't already. Sign up for the database, sign up for the newsletter, and we will see you all again very soon. Thank you
Awesome.
again to our panelists.
Thanks, Michelle.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.